A millionaire's heart changed forever after witnessing a nurse's kindness to his grandfather. Marcus Sterling had built walls around his heart so high that even money couldn't buy a way over them. At 32, he owned 3 companies, drove cars worth more than most people's houses, and had rejected every woman who'd ever tried to get close to him. Love was a luxury he couldn't afford, not because of money, but because of trust. But sometimes, life has a way of breaking down even the strongest walls with the gentlest touch. Before we dive into this extraordinary story, tell us, what city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love hearing from our global family. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep this storytelling journey alive. Your support truly keeps us going. Now sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for a story that will stay with you long after it ends. The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Marcus stared at the unknown number, debating whether to ignore it. Business calls at this hour usually meant crisis, and he was tired of putting out fires. Mr. Sterling. The voice was soft, professional. This is St. Mary's Hospital. Your grandfather, William Sterling, has been admitted. You're listed as his emergency contact. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Grandpa Will. The only person who'd ever loved him without wanting something in return. I'll be right there, he said, already reaching for his keys. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Marcus's mind raced back to his childhood, to the man who'd raised him after his parents died in a car crash when he was 8. Will Sterling had been a simple factory worker who somehow managed to fill a mansion-sized hole in a little boy's heart. St. Mary's Hospital smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Marcus hated hospitals. They reminded him of watching his parents slip away, of feeling helpless while machines beeped and doctors spoke in whispers. He found his grandfather's room on the 4th floor. Through the window, he could see Will lying still, connected to various machines. But what caught Marcus's attention wasn't his grandfather. It was the woman sitting beside the bed. She wore simple blue scrubs and had her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun. She was reading aloud from what looked like an old book, her voice gentle and warm. Even through the glass, Marcus could see his grandfather's face, peaceful, almost smiling. When was the last time he'd seen Grandpa Will smile? Marcus pushed open the door quietly. The woman looked up, and he found himself staring into the kindest brown eyes he'd ever seen. "You must be Marcus," she said, closing the book carefully. "I'm Sarah Chen, your grandfather's night nurse. He's been asking for you." "How is he?" Marcus moved closer to the bed, shocked by how frail his grandfather looked. "Stable for now," Sarah said softly. "But Marcus, you should know. The doctors don't think he has much time left." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd known this day would come eventually, but he wasn't ready. He'd been so busy building his empire that he'd forgotten the most important person in his life was getting older. Over the next few days, Marcus practically lived at the hospital. He rearranged meetings, canceled trips, and for the first time in his adult life, put business second. And every day, he watched Sarah work her magic. She wasn't just a nurse. She was a guardian angel in scrubs. Marcus watched her remember every patient's name, ask about their families, and somehow make the sterile hospital room feel warm. She brought Will his favorite crossword puzzles, played his old jazz records on a small speaker, and listened to his stories about Marcus's childhood with genuine interest. "Your grandson sounds like he was quite the troublemaker," Sarah said one evening, adjusting Will's blanket. Will's eyes twinkled despite his weakness. "Oh, he was. Climbed every tree in the neighborhood. Nearly gave me a heart attack daily." Marcus smiled from his chair in the corner. He'd forgotten about those carefree days before life taught him that caring about people only led to pain. "What changed him?" Sarah asked gently. Will's expression grew serious. He learned too young that people leave. Built walls to protect himself. Can't blame him. But Will looked toward Marcus. Walls that keep pain out also keep love out. Marcus pretended to be absorbed in his phone, but every word hit home. One night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He dozed off in the hospital chair and woke around 3 a.m. to find Sarah sitting beside Will's bed again, this time knitting something small and blue. Can't sleep either, she whispered. Marcus shook his head. Is he? Just sleeping. His breathing is good tonight. Sarah's needles clicked softly in the dim light. I'm making a blanket for the baby in room 312. First time, Mom. All alone. Thought she could use something made with love. Marcus stared at this woman who spent her days caring for strangers and her free time making gifts for people she barely knew. Why do you do this job? Sarah paused her knitting. My grandmother was in a place like this before she died. The nurses there, they weren't kind. They treated her like just another patient. Not like the amazing woman who taught me to bake cookies and told me stories about her childhood in China. She resumed knitting, her voice growing softer. I promised myself that if I ever became a nurse, I'd treat every patient like they were my own family. Because to someone, they are the most important person in the world. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. When was the last time he'd treated anyone like they mattered? On Thursday night, Will took a turn for the worse. Marcus paced the hallway while doctors rushed in and out of the room. Sarah worked beside them, calm and focused, her hands steady as she monitored machines and adjusted medications. Hours passed. Finally, Dr. Martinez emerged, his expression grim. We've stabilized him, but Marcus, it's time to consider hospice care. We've done everything we can. The words felt unreal. Marcus had always believed money could fix anything. He'd offered to fly Will to the best hospitals in the world, to pay for experimental treatments, anything. But some things couldn't be bought. That night, Marcus sat alone with his grandfather. Will's breathing was shallow, labored. The machines seemed louder in the darkness. I'm sorry, Grandpa, Marcus whispered. I'm sorry I wasn't here more. I'm sorry I was so focused on work that I forgot what really mattered. Will's eyes fluttered open. Marcus. His voice was barely audible. I'm here. Are you happy, son? The simple question shattered something inside Marcus. Happy? He had everything money could buy. But when was the last time he'd felt genuine happiness? When was the last time he'd laughed? Really laughed? I don't know, Marcus admitted. Will squeezed his hand with surprising strength. Don't be like me. I loved your grandmother so much, but after she died, I closed my heart. Thought it was safer. His eyes found Marcus's. But that nurse, Sarah, she reminds me what love looks like. Don't wait until you're dying to remember how to live. Friday morning brought what everyone knew would be Will's last day. Marcus had barely slept, barely eaten. He felt hollow, angry at the world for taking away the only person who'd ever truly known him. Sarah arrived for her shift looking tired but determined. She'd brought something special, a photo album she'd asked Marcus to bring from Will's house days earlier. I thought we could look through some memories together, she said gently. As Sarah opened the album, Will's face transformed. Photo after photo showed a life well lived. Will as a young soldier, his wedding day, holding baby Marcus for the first time. Sarah asked questions about each picture, and Will's weak voice grew stronger as he shared stories. This was the day Marcus took his first steps, Will said, pointing to a blurry photo. Right into my arms. Look at that smile, Sarah said, beaming at the photo. He looks just like you, Mr. Sterling. He's got his grandmother's heart though, Will said, even if he's forgotten how to use it. Marcus watched this woman he barely knew bring light to his grandfather's dying moments. She wasn't just doing her job, she was creating magic. She was helping his grandfather feel loved, remembered, important. Then Will began to sing. It was barely a whisper, an old jazz standard he used to hum when Marcus was little. Sarah's face lit up, and she began to hum along, her voice soft and sweet. And then it happened. Will smiled. Not just any smile. The biggest, most genuine smile Marcus had seen from him in years. It was the smile of a man remembering what joy felt like, surrounded by love in his final moments. Marcus felt tears he hadn't cried in decades streaming down his face. Will passed away peacefully that evening, holding Marcus's hand while Sarah hummed softly in the background. His last words were, "Take care of each other." After the doctors left and the machines were turned off, Marcus sat in the quiet room, feeling lost. Sarah had finished her paperwork but hadn't left. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said simply. "He was a remarkable man." "He was," Marcus managed. "Thank you for everything you did for him. I've never seen him so happy in his final days." Sarah sat down across from him. "Can I tell you something? In all my years of nursing, I've seen a lot of people die. Some die surrounded by dozens of family members. Others die completely alone. But the ones who die peacefully, they're the ones who feel loved." She paused, her eyes meeting his. "Your grandfather felt loved because you were here, because you chose to be present when it mattered most." Marcus shook his head. "I was a terrible grandson. I was so busy with work." "Marcus." Sarah's voice was firm but gentle. "I watched him talk about you for days. Every story, every memory. His face would light up. You weren't a terrible grandson. You were his greatest pride." At the funeral 3 days later, Marcus was surprised to see Sarah in the back of the small chapel. She'd come on her day off, wearing a simple black dress, holding a single white rose. After the service, as people offered their condolences, Sarah approached him. "This is for you," she said, handing him a small wrapped package. "Your grandfather asked me to give it to you." Inside was Will's old watch, the one he'd worn every day for 40 years, and a handwritten note. "Marcus, this watch has seen a lot of love in its time. It was with me when I married your grandmother, when I held your father for the first time, and when I watched you grow into the incredible man you've become. Time is the only thing we can't buy more of, son. Don't waste it building walls. Use it building bridges. Love, Grandpa Will." Marcus's hands shook as he read the note. Sarah waited patiently, her presence somehow comforting. "He loved you very much," she said softly. "I don't know how to do this," Marcus admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "I don't know how to let people in. Every time I've cared about someone, they've left." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Grief isn't the price we pay for love, Marcus. It's the proof that love was real. Your grandfather knew that. That's why he could smile even at the end." A week later, Marcus found himself doing something completely out of character. He was sitting in a small coffee shop near the hospital, waiting for Sarah to finish her shift. He'd asked her to meet him, though he wasn't entirely sure why. When she arrived, still in her scrubs, her hair escaping its ponytail after a long day, she looked tired but beautiful. "Thank you for meeting me," Marcus said as she sat down with her coffee. "Of course. How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I'm a mess." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I keep wanting to call him. Keep expecting him to answer his phone when I have good news to share." Sarah nodded. "That's normal. Grief isn't linear." "Sarah, can I ask you something? Why were you so kind to him? To me? You barely knew us." Sarah stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "Do you remember what your grandfather told me about the trees?" Marcus looked confused. "He said you used to climb every tree in the neighborhood. That you weren't afraid of anything." Sarah met his eyes. "I think you're still that brave little boy, Marcus. You've just forgotten how to climb." "I'm not brave," Marcus said quietly. "I'm terrified. Of losing people. Of being hurt." "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Sarah said. "It means you do it anyway." Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself thinking about Sarah constantly. Not in the shallow way he'd thought about other women. This was different. He thought about her gentle hands adjusting his grandfather's blanket, her patient voice reading stories, the way she'd made a dying man feel dignified and loved. He started volunteering at the hospital. At first, he told himself it was to honor his grandfather's memory. But deep down, he knew it was to see Sarah. He helped in the children's ward, reading stories to sick kids. He funded a new comfort room for families of terminal patients. He even started a scholarship program for nursing students. "Your grandfather would be proud," Sarah told him one evening as they walked to the parking garage together. "I keep hearing his voice," Marcus admitted. telling me not to waste time building walls. Sarah stopped walking. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? He nodded. What happened that made you so afraid of love? Marcus was quiet for so long that Sarah thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. When my parents died, I was 8. Will took me in, but I was so angry, so hurt. I pushed everyone away. Kids at school, teachers, even Will for a while. Marcus leaned against his car. Then in college, I met someone. Jessica. I thought I loved her, thought she loved me. Turns out she just loved my trust fund. That must have been devastating. It was. So I decided it was easier to just not try. Focus on work. Build something that couldn't betray me. Marcus looked at Sarah. Until I watched you with my grandfather. What do you mean? You showed me what real love looks like. Not taking, but giving. Not using someone, but caring for them. Marcus's voice grew stronger. You brought him joy in his darkest moments. You didn't even know him, but you treated him like he was precious. Sarah felt tears welling up. He was precious. Every patient is someone's whole world. That's exactly what I mean, Marcus said. You see the world differently than I do. You see the good in people, the worth in everyone. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, you know I care about you. But I need you to understand something. I'm not wealthy. I drive a 10-year-old Honda. I share an apartment with 2 roommates. I'm not the kind of woman who usually catches the attention of millionaires. Marcus stepped closer. You're right. You're not like anyone I've ever met. You're better. I'm serious, Sarah continued. I've seen what happens when people from different worlds try to make it work. The money, the lifestyle differences. Sarah. Marcus gently took her hands. I don't want you to fit into my world. I want to fit into yours. These past few weeks, volunteering at the hospital, talking to the patients, I felt more alive than I have in years. But your business will run just fine with good people managing it. Grandpa will spend 40 years at a factory making just enough to get by. But he was the richest man I knew. Not because of money, but because of love. Sarah searched his eyes. Are you sure about this? About us? Because I don't do casual, Marcus. I don't date for fun or because I'm bored. If we do this, I need to know you're serious. Marcus thought about his grandfather's words. Don't waste time building walls. Use it building bridges. I've never been more serious about anything in my life, he said. Their first official date wasn't at an expensive restaurant or exclusive club. Instead, Marcus picked Sarah up in his most modest car, a simple sedan he kept for occasions when he didn't want to draw attention. They went to a small Italian restaurant Sarah loved, where the owner knew her name and asked about her patients. Marcus watched her interact with everyone, the waitress, the busboy, the elderly couple at the next table. She made everyone feel seen, important. Tell me about your family, Marcus said over pasta that was simple but perfect. My parents immigrated from Taiwan when I was 5, Sarah said. Dad worked 2 jobs to put me through nursing school. Mom still calls me every day to make sure I'm eating enough. They must be proud of you. Sarah smiled. They worry I work too hard. They want me to find a nice accountant and settle down. She paused. They're going to be very confused when I tell them about you. Because I'm white. Because you're rich, Sarah laughed. My family values hard work and kindness over money. They're going to grill you harder than any business partner ever has. Marcus found himself looking forward to it. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood outside a modest duplex in Queens, holding flowers and feeling more nervous than he had before any business presentation. Sarah's parents, David and Lily Chen, were exactly what Marcus expected, warm, protective, and skeptical of the millionaire dating their daughter. So, Marcus, David said over dinner, Sarah tells us you own companies. What kind of companies? Technology consulting, real estate development, and a small investment firm, Marcus replied honestly. Lily served him another helping of homemade dumplings. And what do you want with our daughter? The directness caught Marcus off guard, but he appreciated it. I want to be worthy of her, he said simply. She's taught me that there's more to life than making money. She's made me want to be a better person. Sarah's younger brother Kevin, home from college, chimed in. Sarah's always been like that. She used to bring home stray cats, injured birds, kids who were being bullied. Mom used to joke that Sarah couldn't see someone hurting without trying to fix it. Kevin, Sarah warned, blushing. It's true though, Lily said, her expression softening as she looked at Marcus. Our daughter has a gift for healing broken things. Marcus met her eyes. I know. She's healing me. The real test came a month later when Marcus's business partner, Richard, threw one of his famous networking parties. Sarah had agreed to attend, but Marcus could see she was nervous. The party was everything Sarah wasn't used to: designer gowns, champagne that cost more than her monthly rent, conversations about stocks and real estate deals. Marcus watched several of his usual crowd approach Sarah throughout the evening. He saw the way some of the women looked at her simple black dress, the way some of the men dismissed her when they learned she was just a nurse. But Marcus also saw how Sarah handled it all with grace. She asked thoughtful questions, listened genuinely to people's answers, and somehow made everyone feel comfortable talking to her. Your girlfriend is lovely, said Amanda Rothschild, a socialite who'd been trying to catch Marcus's attention for years. But there was something cold in her voice. Very down to earth. Marcus knew exactly what Amanda meant, and it made him angry. Yes, she is. She's real. Well, I hope you know what you're doing. These kinds of relationships can be complicated. Marcus excused himself and found Sarah on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Ready to go? He asked. She turned, and he could see she'd been crying. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing. This isn't my world, Marcus. These people, this lifestyle. I don't belong here. Marcus pulled her close. You're right. You don't belong here. You're too good for this place, for these people, including me. That's not what I meant. Sarah, listen to me. I've spent my whole adult life in rooms like this, with people like them, and I've never been more miserable. But you make a dying man smile. You knit blankets for strangers. You see the good in everyone. Marcus lifted her chin. You don't need to fit into my world. I want to fit into yours. The next week, Marcus did something that shocked everyone who knew him. He announced he was stepping back from day-to-day operations of his companies to focus on philanthropy. Are you insane? Richard demanded. You're giving up millions. I'm gaining something worth more than millions, Marcus replied. He established the William Sterling Foundation, dedicated to improving healthcare for underserved communities. Sarah became the director, and together they worked to build clinics, fund nursing scholarships, and provide comfort items for hospital patients. Marcus discovered that using his money to help others felt better than anything he'd ever bought for himself. 6 months later, Marcus returned to St. Mary's Hospital, not as a visitor, but as a volunteer. He was reading to children in the pediatric ward when Sarah found him. The kids love you, she said, watching him show picture books to a group of young patients. Grandpa will used to read to me like this, Marcus said. Funny how things come full circle. After the children were settled for their naps, Marcus led Sarah to a quiet garden area outside the hospital. It was where they'd often sat during Will's final days, talking about everything and nothing. Sarah, I need to tell you something, Marcus began. She looked worried. What is it? Marcus dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple but beautiful ring. I need to tell you that you've changed my life completely. That watching you care for my grandfather taught me what love really means. That I can't imagine spending another day without you in it. Sarah gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. I know I'm not perfect. I know I still have walls to tear down and things to learn about being a good partner. But I love you, Sarah Chen. I love your kindness, your strength, your ability to find light in the darkest places. Marcus's voice shook with emotion. Will you marry me? Sarah was crying now, but smiling through her tears. Yes, yes, of course yes. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Sarah laughed through her tears. Your grandfather would be so happy. I think he already knew, Marcus said, pulling her close. I think he sent you to save me. Their wedding was nothing like the society events Marcus had attended his entire life. Instead of a grand ballroom, they were married in the hospital chapel where they'd met. Instead of hundreds of guests, they invited only the people who mattered most. Sarah's family filled one side of the small chapel. On Marcus's side sat his employees who'd become like family, and dozens of nurses, doctors, and patients from the hospital who'd become part of their extended family. Dr. Martinez performed the ceremony, and in his remarks, he said something that made everyone smile. Love is the most powerful medicine we have. Marcus and Sarah, you've both learned that healing happens not just through medical treatment, but through human connection. As they exchanged vows, Marcus promised to love Sarah the way she'd loved his grandfather. Completely, selflessly, and with joy. Sarah promised to help Marcus remember every day that love was worth the risk. When they kissed, the small chapel erupted in cheers. Even some of the patients who were well enough had been wheeled down to watch, and they clapped from their wheelchairs and hospital beds. 2 years later, Marcus and Sarah were back at St. Mary's Hospital, but this time for a different reason. Sarah was in labor with their first child. Remember when you told me grief was proof that love was real? Marcus said, holding Sarah's hand through another contraction. Yes, Sarah breathed. I think joy is proof too. This baby, this life we're creating, it's proof that Grandpa Will was right. Love is worth the risk. Their daughter was born at sunrise, and they named her Hope. As Marcus held his tiny daughter for the first time, he thought about his grandfather's words. Don't wait until you're dying to remember how to live. 5 years after Will's death, Marcus stood in the pediatric ward of the newest William Sterling Foundation clinic, watching Sarah read to a group of children. Their daughter Hope, now 3, sat among them, her eyes wide with wonder at her mother's storytelling. One of the children, a little boy named Tommy who was fighting leukemia, tugged on Sarah's scrub top. Miss Sarah, will you read another story? Of course, sweetheart, Sarah said, reaching for another book. Marcus watched his wife, this incredible woman who taught him how to love, work her magic once again. She had the same gift she'd always had, the ability to bring light to dark places, to make people feel valued and loved. Hope climbed into Marcus's lap. Daddy, why are you crying? Marcus wiped his eyes, smiling. Happy tears, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're really, really happy. Like when Mama reads stories. Exactly like that. As Sarah continued reading, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought him here. He'd started as a man who rejected love to protect himself from pain. But Sarah had shown him that the real tragedy wasn't getting hurt. It was missing out on all the joy that love could bring. His grandfather had been right. Walls that kept pain out also kept love out. But bridges? Bridges could carry you to places you never imagined possible. Today, the William Sterling Foundation operates 12 clinics across the country. Marcus splits his time between running the foundation and volunteering at hospitals. Sarah leads the nursing education program, training new nurses not just in medical skills, but in the art of compassionate care. They have 3 children now, Hope, Will, named after his great-grandfather, and Grace. All 3 have inherited Sarah's gift for seeing the good in people and Marcus's determination to make a difference. Every evening, Marcus reads to his children the same way Will once read to him. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, he swears he can see his grandfather smiling, proud of the man Marcus has become. The scared little boy who'd lost his parents and built walls around his heart had grown into a man who understood that the greatest wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touched and the love you shared. Marcus learned that sometimes the most powerful changes come not from grand gestures or dramatic moments, but from simple acts of kindness, like a nurse taking time to read to a dying man, or making sure he felt loved in his final days. And sometimes, when you least expect it, opening your heart to help someone else heal can end up healing you too. The millionaire who once rejected all women had found something more valuable than any fortune. A love that made him rich in all the ways that truly mattered. On quiet evenings, when the children are asleep and the house is peaceful, Marcus and Sarah often sit together looking through photo albums. There are pictures of their wedding, their children's first steps, family vacations, and holiday celebrations. But Marcus's favorite photo is one Sarah took without him knowing. It shows him in the hospital, reading to a group of sick children, his face filled with the same joy Will used to have when reading to young Marcus. "You know what I love about this picture?" Sarah says every time they look at it. "What?" "You have your grandfather's smile." And Marcus knows she's right. He'd found his way back to that smile, the one that comes from loving and being loved, from caring more about others than yourself, from understanding that the greatest treasures in life can't be bought or sold. They can only be given freely, from one heart to another. Did this story touch your heart? If you enjoyed this story of love, loss, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to the Beyond Yesterday YouTube channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Every story we share celebrates the moments that change us forever. Just like Marcus and Sarah's journey showed us that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin in the most unexpected places.